I often get a phone call from a potential client that needs to achieve a level of CMMI to bid on a particular piece of work. And the first question out of their mouth is, what is CMMI? And it helps to start with what CMMI isn't, because there's a lot of mythology in the marketplace today about CMMI. And I just want to get a few things straight. Number one, CMMI is not about documents. People often call and say, tell me what documents I have to fill out to be CMMI level 3. CMMI is not about documents, it's about behavior. Number two, CMMI is not about audits. It's not about auditing your company. That's the benchmark appraisal that they're referring to, not CMMI, and it's a very distinct, different kind of process. Finally, what CMMI is not is a draconian set of rules that you must follow in order to get your work done every single day and completely change the way you work so that you can comply with this CMMI model. So it's not about documents, it's not about audits, and it's not about draconian processes that change the way you work. What is CMMI really about? It helps to think of the capability maturity model integration as a behavioral model, a model that defines how great organizations behave. And when I say behave, I mean process. And process is just a synonym for behavior. It's how people behave while they're in the workplace. Who participates in meetings, and how do they participate? And what do they come prepared to do? And what are they prepared to do after that meeting? And when they produce a design, who do they involve and how do they involve them? Is it a facilitated session? Do we count on an expert to come up with a first pass design? What is the behavior pattern that we show? And these healthy and productive behavior patterns are defined pretty clearly in the CMMI model across about 20 practice areas. So what they did many years ago at the Software Engineering Institute, they came up with this idea of defining vertically the various behaviors and tasks associated with building systems and products. And they put together in a model after doing tons of interviews and talking to lots of great companies that produce products and produce services. And they said, what are the actions and behaviors and tasks of really great performing companies? And they bifurcated them across multiple practice areas, and then they made lists in each one and provided examples and said, here's an example of what great companies are doing to produce products and services. The CMMI is really a clearly defined set of behaviors. So an appraisal is when you evaluate the behaviors and actions of a group of folks to determine whether they are aligned with the definition of behaviors in the CMMI. This is where the mythology of documents comes into play. One of the ways we evaluate what behavior took place in order to produce a product is the physical evidence that gets produced when someone performs an action. So when, say, you create a plan, go through a design process, create a systems design, what kinds of breadcrumbs do you leave behind that demonstrate that yes, you involved the right people, yes, you followed a healthy and holistic process that makes sense for your company, but those are just examples. There's many, many different kinds of evidence that can be reviewed, and it isn't always documents. In the age of COVID and virtual delivery, a lot of it has been video, listening in on meetings. One of my favorite things to do to collect objective evidence is observation. If I'm working with an Agile team, you tend to see a lot of collaboration, a lot of people working together, producing things in a very healthy and holistic way, and observing that, listening to that, taking photographs of that, taking audio of that in order to capture some of the magic that took place during that so we can use it later and be even more successful. Those are ideas that you could inject into your process in order to make that process more successful. So it isn't just about documents. So this mythology of documents was introduced because many consultants would come along and say, if I just hand you a bunch of documents and you fill them out, the appraiser will have to give you that level 3 rating. And that just isn't true. Most of the appraisers that I know and respect would never give a rating if someone handed them a bunch of documents. It needs to be real life. It needs to be alive. It needs to be something that we can see moving and happening. So it's not about documents, but what it is about the actions and the behaviors of a team that are aligned with the CMMI, which in turn is a definition of how a great company behaves. So enjoy the CMMI. I'm Jeff Dalton from Ask the CMMI Appraiser. Follow me for more CMMI tips.